Building an acoustic visualizer is an easy and interesting science project. All you need is a piece of scrap lumber to mount the pieces on, a laser pointer, and a plastic drum about 5 or 6 inches in diameter. A simple way to hold the laser in place in an adjustable mount and also keep the button pressed down so that the laser stays on is to simply wind several turns of a stiff wire around the body and then screw the end of that wire to the mounting board. When you slide the laser forward, the tension of the windings will keep the button pressed down so it stays on. The opposite end of the visualizer consists of a cylinder open at both ends and 5 or 6 inches in diameter. I found that this is the ideal size. Bigger or smaller doesn't work as well. A convenient source for these tubes are coffee cans, heavy-duty plastic jars, or the straight union for a large diameter PVC plumbing pipe. The membrane stretched over this is a piece of rubber which I harvested from a large balloon. If you use that technique, it's helpful to blow the balloon up a couple of hours beforehand and then cut it and stretch it over. That stretches the rubber so it's not quite so tight. Then I secured it with just some duct tape. Right now, the laser beam is pointed slightly away from the mirror so you can see it actually hitting the rubber membrane. Let's set it up, point it at the wall, and see how it works. And here's what the operational setup looks like. Here's the visualizer, and if you look down to the far wall, you can see the laser beam having been reflected off of this surface down to there, where any movement of the membrane is greatly amplified. What you do is you talk or have music go into the tube here. It causes the membrane to vibrate, and you can get interesting patterns appearing on the wall traced out by the laser pointer. Let's give it a try. What I'm going to do is turn out the lights and move the camera closer to the image created on the far wall so you can see what it looks like. To make it work, simply place your mouth close to the opening of the tube and speak naturally. Now, I found that lower frequencies create larger images. For example, A couple of things that I found that young children enjoy is saying their own names. Every enunciation produces a slightly different pattern so that they can recognize their own name when it's spoken. Gail, Daniel, Abby, Julia, Jacob, James. Another thing that's fun is to have them hum and try to produce a perfectly round circle. For example, It's harder than it looks. As interesting as this is, if you have an iPad and a small audio amplifier, you can create some really dynamic effects and very attractive patterns. Here's how I did it. Here's the setup. This is a little 10-watt amplifier with the speaker pointed into the end of the acoustic visualizer. You could also use any type of amplified speaker. The reason you need some amplification is that the iPad doesn't put out enough sound to vibrate the membrane of the acoustic visualizer enough to create a pattern on the wall. The iPad will need a tone generator on it. This is just software that produces a steady tone which can be adjusted in pitch. I prefer this one, the Oscillator 1.3.3, also called the tone and noise generator, because it has 2 oscillators on it. This allows you to overlap 2 different signals to create much more interesting patterns. And when I turn on the switch to the amp, here's what we get. In general, when you're using just one of the oscillators, you'll get a single non-moving figure such as this. If you slide the frequency bar back and forth. You can change the pattern, but they're still all fixed once you settle on a particular frequency. For example, there's the circle I tried so hard to get. Where things get really interesting is when you turn on the second oscillator and it introduces secondary vibrations. Using the slow motion controls, we can actually stop the oscillations so that it looks like a still figure. Which shows what the basic pattern looks like. Let's search around and see what else we can find. I really like this one. These patterns aren't images of actual sound waves. They're images representing how the membrane is vibrating in response to sound waves that are hitting them. It's similar to striking a bell with a hammer. The bell vibrates in response to the hammer strike, but the bell's vibrations does not reflect the motion of the hammer prior to the impact. These few patterns are just a very few of the hundreds and hundreds that can be discovered with a 2-oscillator setup. I hope you found this video interesting and that you'll stop by my main website at waynesthisthandthat.com, where you'll find hundreds of even more interesting articles. Thanks for watching.